of a fever, one that would cure me of this cold winter sad heart. With heat to melt these frozen tears, burned with reasons as to carry on. Into these twisted months I plunge without a light to follow, but I swear that I would follow anything. Just get me out of here.
Hello and welcome to Are You Captain My Captain to Me? The third installment of a limited sub-podcast within the last podcast where my brother Morgan and I discussed the Disney Plus series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or should we say Captain America and the Winter Soldier, as the show is rechristened at the end.
Yes.
I am your host, Little.
I'm his brother, your other host, Little.
And, you know, we said this was going to be called Zach Little Eats His Hat, if indeed the show ended with Falcon donning the Captain America identity, if not costume.
Yes.
And
how do you feel about
what what we'll subtitle this episode instead is Zach Little Eats His Hat with a lot of reservations. Because, you know, I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. And then toward the end of the episode, I was like, but not like this. But let's not focus on the terrible speech at the end of the episode yet. Let's talk about the stuff that we liked.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I gotta say, like, when this episode started, despite my qualms, and I would say that my little metaphor about it being a dish that's not cohesive from last time is probably the shortest summation of my qualms, you know? There are a lot of, like, unnecessary garnishes on this plate.
Sure.
There are things that you think are going to be the focus of the dish that turn out to not be.
Yep.
And overall, it doesn't really cohere. You're like, what is this thing doing here? Why do we keep going back to this boat in New Orleans? Well, actually, I keep saying New Orleans, but it's somewhere in Louisiana. I think it's unspecified location in Louisiana. But why do we keep going back to the boat?
Yeah.
There's a shot at the end when they're like, which there's like a little barbecue party scene, which is nice, but also just like does not fit. It has that same weird, incongruous feeling that you get at the end of like the Return of the King.
Okay,
like,
let's not compare it to.
You're like, what is this? Why are you giving me this? I like it, but I don't. Like, I like it by itself, but I don't like it in the context of anything. So, but they're looking out at the water, right? And I'm like, oh, they're going to see the boat in the water, right? That's it, right? The boat's seaworthy now. That's what they're going to see at the end of the episode.
Yeah, they definitely should have.
They're just looking at something. It fades out before you even see what they're looking at. Or they're just looking at the sunset or something. I can't remember. But it's like, where's the boat?
Okay, I think that the reasoning for being there is... Okay, so I'm not going to argue for it. I don't think that it was good, those pieces of the story. I think they are there to highlight that Sam Wilson is not just a superhero, and that he has your everyday struggles as well. He's just like a regular guy who has been transformed into this thing.
Yeah, and I also think it's like, it also has a lot to do with attachment to symbols, right? Because so much of the story is about attachment to the symbol of the shield. And
right.
And he is also attached to the symbol of his parents and his family.
Well, it's that, and it works for Bucky too, which is that Bucky Barnes is a guy who keeps claiming that all he wants is like peace, and never gets it. And as much as it kind of seems like he's still going to be kicking ass in the future, you know, like at least he has developed this friendship and also, is able to go to like a cookout at someone's house.
Yeah, from now on, he's going to be kicking ass from a Zen place.
Yeah, I honestly, the Bucky Barnes stuff throughout the show is great. You know, like, I think we could have held longer on it. Like the fact that they literally build up to this whole thing of him telling the older Japanese man about his son, and then as soon as we get him to go tell the Japanese man, it's like we cut away. We're just done.
Yeah, it gets eaten up by a montage,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And it's like, what, I know that earlier the old man sort of established that, like, he just wanted to know what happened. And presumably now he knows what happened, and then Bucky sees him later eating sushi and seemingly okay. But it's like, you're not going to give us anything like that. You're not going to give us any more words.
Well, and you know what, I think that I
killed
needed,
your son.
As a viewer, I needed a little more of Bucky being at peace with it. Like I needed him to explain to the man that like it was not him doing these things. I know that conversation took place, but I needed to see it. Like I needed to see it so I know that Bucky knows that.
Also, he gives the therapist his book.
Yeah.
Isn't that Steve Rogers' book?
Yes. You would assume that is like a personal...
It's probably got like Sharon Carter's phone number with like a little note in Steve's handwriting that's like, do not call.
Yeah, like why? I don't know. Why... Oh, by the way, while we're on the topic of Steve Rogers, there are 2 references throughout the show to him being on the moon.
Yes.
Do you think that Steve Rogers is in space with Sword?
No, I don't think so. I think that people are in space with Sword, and I think that's the joke.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just a callback. I think it's just a structural callback when that guy says, I thought Captain America was on the moon.
I mean, I think it is too. It's obviously just to be a reference, but we know that in general timeline things, Peggy Carter has passed away at this point.
Yes.
No matter what universe you're in or whatever, you would assume that Peggy Carter is long dead at this point, because even if it didn't go the exact same way, she would still be like 110 or something. Because this is supposed to be 2025.
Yeah, I would say that the prevailing theory about Steve Rogers is that there are, in fact, multiple timelines now. Even though Avengers Endgame sort of dissuaded us of that notion, I think that there are, in fact, multiple timelines, maybe because of Steve going back in time. And so I think the suggestion among the fans, right, is that Steve is actually just in an alternate timeline. He popped back over to this one.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
Because he
Of course,
created
it doesn't
his
really
own.
It doesn't explain why he's old. You know what I mean? Because if he's in a different timeline, then that means he's somehow figured out a way to continue to travel through time or between timelines. And so I get that they're kind of retconning the time travel stuff in Avengers Endgame, but it does kind of take away from the effect of Avengers Endgame, I guess. That's what I think. If there's a multiverse, and there like almost certainly is a multiverse now, it does kind of take away from what Avengers Endgame argued, which is that there isn't. The whole point of Avengers Endgame was that it isn't.
I think that, well, what if you look at it like this? The whole point is that we are not creating any more or any darker timelines where they don't have those stones. You create those timelines when you take the stone, but you close it when you put it back. I don't think that they're saying that there's only one timeline that is in, the whole idea is that we're not going to disrupt timelines and make them like incapable of having those stones be there for integral parts of time.
And maybe Loki will give us some more clarity, but so far it seems to me that the Disney Plus TV shows have avoided providing much in terms of overall universe clarity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they sort of...
Purposefully vague.
Both WandaVision and the Falcon and Winter Soldier both kind of, like, allow for multiple possibilities and explanations later on. Like, they just kind of pass that ball on to whoever's got to do the next big major thing. And maybe that is because of the way everything was shuffled up because of the pandemic and Black Widow and everything. I guess we will see. Black Widow and Loki will make some of this clearer, and we'll talk about it in our next limited series. Are you low-key talking Loki to me?
So this is off topic real quick. Have you seen the Randall Park movie, Always Be My Maybe?
Yeah.
I watched it last night. Boy, that movie's great.
Oh, it's so great. The scene when there's no spoilers really, but there's a scene involving like a restaurant that gets opened toward the very end of the movie.
Yes.
And oh my god, made me cry.
Yeah, I cried a lot. Yeah.
But I think it's very fun. It's a very funny movie.
Yeah, it's wicked funny, and I love that his band's awesome. I love that they tee
Yes.
it up like the band's gonna suck, and then you hear them and you're like, this band's awesome.
I think that Bounce Back Like a Tennis Ball song is one of the better fictional songs. You know, you've got your pantheon of great fictional songs.
Yes.
That Thing You Do.
Yeah, oh my god, great reference. Wow, you're so right.
Scotty Doesn't Know.
See, I figured you were going to go in more of a direction like this.
Yeah, like Euro Trip or something, right? Isn't that where that's
Yeah,
from?
but that song's not actually like a good song. It's just really funny in the moment, you know?
Oh, you know what's a good song is We Are Sex Bomb from Scott Pilgrim.
I've actually I've never seen Scott Pilgrim.
You know, here's what I'd say about Scott Pilgrim. It's a tough buy. Like, there's the first time that like someone bursts into song in outside of like a band practice scene or something in Scott Pilgrim, it's like my skin just like wants to immediately leave, like shrivel up and leave my body.
Mm-hmm.
But like once you kind of get over it, it's good and interesting. There's like a little bit too much happening in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I don't know. I've
Like,
just never
there's a
pulled
few
the
too many
trigger on it,
decisions.
you know?
Like, I really like the movie Baby Driver, the Edgar Wright movie Baby Driver.
Also never seen
and
it.
Baby Driver feels like, I don't know, like he used the right amount of restraint on the Edgar Wright bag of tricks. And Scott Pilgrim, I know it has to make so many like visual references to its source material and everything, but there's just a little bit too much. It needs to just come back a little bit. Like Aubrey Plaza's character is like extremely profane, but is always censored, and like little black boxes appear in front of her mouth when she is swearing, and it's like, it's fine. It's like, I don't get why this is happening.
Yeah.
Like, this just seems like it's like one too many gimmicks.
All right, so let's pull it back to Captain America and the Falcon.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning, okay?
Okay,
because
great.
I will say that despite my many qualms, as that opening montage, the opening Marvel thing rolled, I was like, I am hyped to see how this ends.
Yeah,
like
I think that as we were watching it, there may have been more, criticisms. I think that if we were to look at this thing as a whole and like do a rewatch, I think it would be very satisfying.
maybe.
Because I just think that like, I love that this episode was straight up like, all right, here's what you've been waiting for. We're going to give everything to you right now. And like it immediately kicks off. It's like, boom, you've got Captain America.
Yeah, when he flies in and then he introduces himself to that guy, he says, "I'm Captain America." I like rewound that like 3 times. I just hearing him saying, "I'm Captain America," I just loved it.
I love that the Wakandans made his suit so very dope. Like, everything in it is so cool.
I'm not wild about the headpiece with the goggles.
So, yeah,
It's just,
see,
like around his ears and stuff, it just looks really weird.
well, it's comic accurate, you know? It's like they had to do it like that because
I
that's
guess
what he
that's
looks
true.
like as Captain America in the comic books. So I think
yeah.
they had way too much, it's like, I'm sure somebody was like, okay, well, wait, we're not going to protect his head at all? He's a guy in a flying suit. We're not going to give him a helmet?
Most of the time, people don't look like they look in the comics. I mean, Marvel has started to really do that more now, but until recently, that wasn't totally the case.
I think it would be super dope if in future properties he has a Captain America helmet at times. You know, he doesn't always need to have those stupid goggles on, you know?
No, although I do kind of like the idea of the vaguely Captain America look now being reserved for U.S. agent.
Yeah, I do too.
John Walker, who survives this series.
I'm fully on board.
Gets a slightly clunky introduction scene.
At the end? You mean at the end?
Yeah, where she's like, where Julia Louis-Dreyfus is like, we don't need a Captain America, we need a U.S. agent. And it's like, well, what's the difference between those two words?
Yeah, I know. I thought that was very dumb too. But
it reminded me of something we didn't talk about with Justice League, by the way, which is the Martian Manhunter scene at the end.
Yeah.
Which I find strange, but then the movie is dedicated to Zack Snyder's daughter, and which absolutely crushed me.
Me too.
The dedication at the end of it. But I wondered if maybe, I don't know, maybe she really liked Martian Manhunter or something. Like the fact that it ended on that kind of bizarre note felt like a little. It felt sort of personal, but I did laugh when Martian Manhunter sort of dismisses this idea of his name when Bruce Wayne asks him. He's like, I go by many names, but then he's like, some have called me Martian Manhunter, and it's like, and that's the one you like best?
Well, and also it's like you just introduced yourself to Bruce Wayne, who is, I don't know, literally became obsessed with killing an alien over the fact that he didn't trust him. And you told him that your name is the Martian Manhunter. So, I don't know. Maybe save that part. Did he even say that his name is John Jones?
No.
That's
he says,
so weird.
I've gone by many names, and then he says some people call me Martian Manhunter, and then he flies off.
You could almost go by, it would be less clunky if he listed a couple of names. And John Jones could have been one of them, and then he could have said the Martian Manhunter. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that scene was
superhero naming scenes are rough.
They are.
That's the reason we never heard the name Scarlet Witch before. Is because they just couldn't figure out how to say it.
Well, and I loved "You Are the Scarlet Witch" scene. People thought that was like too on the nose, but I loved that in WandaVision. Okay, Captain America walks in. He's like, "I'm Captain America." And
yes, so that's so great, and I love that the guy says, I love that character, right? That guy has a very funny arc in the episode. He says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Captain America." And he says, "I thought Captain America was on the moon." The next time we see that guy, it's at the end of the episode, and he walks up to Sam, and he's like, "Hey, Captain America, we need your help with something." And I was like, "Look at that! He came around so fast."
Yeah. Well, and also it's like, you know that's not the same guy. Why would you say I thought Captain America was on the moon? Like, that makes no sense. Like, you'd be like, you're staring at a black man who is very clearly not the person that... I don't know.
He takes the episode to process. He's a stand-in for people that are going to have trouble accepting Sam Wilson. At first, he's dubious when he hears I'm Captain America. Then he sees him in action, and he's like, yeah, that's Captain America.
Yeah.
I must have missed before that Captain America was black and had wings.
Let's talk about the suit a little more and how very dope it is. The wings look amazing when they come out and everything like that. What I like about them is that it's very Stark and Wakanda tech style.
Yeah, I think that the utility of his suit and the way he uses things like his little jetpack booster thing, and he uses the wings at one point to anchor himself into the ground, and all of the little methods in which he uses the suit are really well illustrated in the episode, which I think is really cool because that's one of the hardest and most expensive things to do, like CGI-wise, and I think that they do a great job with it, and it looks seamless to me. There are these moments of action in these Disney Plus TV shows that look like, funny that Marvel tightened the purse strings all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know.
But those scenes were not among them. You know, there's some really good stuff there that's done that looks beautiful in terms of its technological execution.
My favorite detail of this is when he lands to protect that guy and wraps the shield around. Wraps the wings around him, and the shield creates the dome at the top.
Yes,
I was like,
cool.
I was like, holy fucking shit, that is cool.
It's cool, and not only that, I love that it's got the classic superhero moment, which is New Yorkers cheering for a superhero on a bridge.
Yep, that's great stuff.
Always the best. I love that when New York comes out for Spider-Man, those are the best moments in Spider-Man
Yeah,
movies,
they are. Those are great.
It's like, it makes you feel so good when, even just the one in Homecoming where the guy sees Spider-Man and he goes like, "Hey, Spider-Man, do a backflip."
Yeah, that's good
and he does
stuff.
the backflip and the guy's like, "Yeah!"
Okay, so the shield wings dome, all of that stuff when he catches the armored car was a awesome scene, because you're like, who's gonna be the one that saves them? And you're like, duh, it's Captain America.
I do want to mention too that moment, right? That moment has an interesting moment with John Walker, where John Walker can either chase the Flag Smashers or catch the armored car.
Yeah.
And he throws down his shield and he tries to save the armored car.
Yeah.
He does not succeed, and Falcon comes in and saves the day in the end. But John Walker drops his shield and makes the right decision.
Well, and it actually seems like he would have probably been able to save them if the Flag Smashers hadn't come in and thrown him off the side,
Probably
like he
true.
actually was gonna do it, kind of thing.
Yeah. But I would say that moment I have seen multiple times. People are interpreting as it's supposed to be like the redeeming moment for John Walker.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? You can't just redeem him that fast?" And to which I think is, I don't think they're trying to redeem him. I think they're just trying to complicate him.
I agree.
Because John Walker is neither hero nor villain.
Right.
So you don't know which side of the story he's going to end up on. And I've said this before in this little podcast miniseries, but we need more of those. We need more wild cards in the story.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, and that's how life is. It's like not everyone would actually be a superhero or an evil villain,
Yeah. So I like this idea that John Walker is someone who is mostly well-meaning.
Yeah.
Who is quick to temper and doesn't always make the right call, in part because of his temper and maybe in part because of his sense of aggrievement. But then also I love that he quotes Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my God, I was laughing so hard at that.
Yeah. Bucky comments that it sounds kind of deranged from him, and I was like that's perfect. This is what I want him to be. I want U.S. Agent showing up all the time, quoting historical figures, and doing something insanely violent.
I was laughing so hard at that scene. Let's talk. Okay, before we dive into Carly and the Flag Smashers,
wait, now here's my dream job, by the way.
Okay.
Here's my dream job. Now I'm going to try to make this happen. I want to get hired by Marvel to write a U.S. Agent movie where it's like the most amoral Marvel movie.
Yeah. By the way, quick side note too, do you know that they're doing Secret Invasion as their next big movie?
I didn't know it was going to be a movie. I didn't know if it was a show or what.
It sounds like it's a movie. They've hired Emilia Clarke is apparently going to be in it.
That's interesting because Emilia Clarke is one of those people who you were like, is this person good at acting or not?
Well,
you can't really tell.
I assume whoever she's playing is going to be a Skrull, and so she probably won't be herself most of the time. She'll probably be some other character. So the premise of Secret Invasion is that after post-Skrull Kree War, Iron Man and a couple of others form a group called the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are secret Avengers who are just kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes. And this is Iron Man, Black Panther, Professor X, Namor, and a couple others. So what they do is they actually go to talk to the Skrulls, and they end up being sort of studied there. And then after the fact, the Secret Invasion follows, which is that all these different characters are actually Skrulls that have been replaced. So Sharon Carter's a Skrull, right?
Oh.
I
guess that's possible, but aren't the Skrulls mostly good?
I think that's a swap. I think they aren't. I think
because that's the whole premise of Captain Marvel is
I know
reverse, is making you think Skrulls are bad and they turn out to be good, the Skrulls are working with Nick Fury.
Yeah.
As established by
So no, I think that it's all a lie. I think that they've been had.
It's a lie within a lie? Like,
yes.
Because they already did it the other way.
Well, they weren't
I don't know.
being
I'm not sure. I think that's cheating. I think you can't spend all of Captain Marvel acting like the Skrulls are evil and then go, no, wait, Skrulls are good. And then later go, no, wait, Skrulls are evil. Captain Marvel was right the first time.
Well, I mean, I agree, but I also think that Captain Marvel 2 is going to happen in between that time. And I think that we could be laying the groundwork. I think it's going to be something along the lines of the fact that, like, the Skrulls are not bad, but they have an agenda as well. And
I would just say my word of caution on this would just be that Marvel Cinematic Universe and now the Disney Plus series they always go for something simpler than the comic books did. Right. And then what people actually think is going to happen.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think that they'll play it out like the Secret Invasion in the comic books. Because look at what happened with Civil War.
But in terms of the question of whether or not Sharon Carter's is Skrull, it's like Kevin Feige's razor, would suggest, that no, she's not. She's just evil now.
Yeah, probably.
Which is a slightly weird turn. I think she sells it pretty well, but we said in the last episode, right? They're doing a lot of work to make you think Sharon Carter's up to something shady throughout the whole series. Yeah. And so the reveal feels like it should have been, but actually she wasn't.
Well, and honestly,
so to say yep, what you thought was happening is happening. She's the power broker and she's evil.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I don't know. I'm more just thinking it's sort of weird how, I don't know, her whole bit is really weird. And then at the end we see her, come back to the United States and call someone and be like, we're in kind of deal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was just, that was a really goofy scene.
I thought so too.
I thought the reveal of Sharon Carter as the power broker was also just sort of very awkwardly handled.
I laughed out loud when she popped out from behind that little. She's hiding behind. It's you're supposed to be this big villain.
And the French guy's just oh, so you're the power broker, just in case you missed it. Yeah. And then they do that kind of thing where they all get shot, right? And then when Sam comes in, Sam acts like he does not notice or care that Sharon has been shot in the stomach.
Yeah, it's
I wanted to almost watch the scene again. Are you supposed to think she's hiding it from him?
Well, no,
because he seems surprised when he sees her later and she's hurt.
We should have implied somewhere along the way that Sam was using her and cool with her, but skeptical of her or something like that. Because then it would kind of complicate the relationship a little bit more. How hilarious is it that they are in New York City and Sam's I called in some backup and the backup is Sharon Carter. It's you're in New York City. You're telling me that there aren't 20 Avengers that you could have called or anyone? You could have called anyone other than Sharon Carter and you called her?
It would have been legally tricky, but it would have been great if it was Spider-Man because of the sort of the past scene history that Spider-Man has with Falcon.
Oh my God, that's so true. It would have been perfect, man.
Yeah, and I mean, just can you imagine how much fun Tom Holland would have added to that last episode?
Yeah, I mean, and God, what a disappointment. I wonder if it is all just legal stuff and.
With Spider-Man, it is, but with the rest of it, it's hard to say. It's just sort of I don't know. It feels like Marvel is still kind of setting their ambition level with these TV shows. And it's they don't quite know, and they're also, obviously our expectations are not, we don't know where to calibrate our expectations.
Yeah. I mean,
because Endgame blows all your expectations out of the water. It's completely different than you think it's going to be, and it's so much more than you thought.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
And so now we're recalibrating, and I think that's part of why Spider-Man Far From Home landed with such a thud,
Yeah, Far From Home. I hated Far From Home.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've got to want to revisit it just because I like Jake Gyllenhaal so much.
I know. Well, and
but...
he's great in it, but I feel like they ruined the character of Mysterio. We don't need to go into all my qualms with that movie. Can you possibly imagine anyone seriously saying the words, "Have you ever been able to fight for something bigger than yourself?" to Bucky Barnes? How could the actress who plays Carly even be like, yeah, that's a good line for me to say here? Like, it's like this guy has literally been fighting for something bigger than himself his whole life, which is, by the way, way longer than anyone else's life. And like every time he's there, every time we see him, he's fighting for something bigger than himself. And we had her say that to him in this show.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny. I was thinking about the fact that, yeah, obviously he fought in World War II, you know, and that's something I want to kind of bring in and talk about in a little bit is Trial of the Chicago 7, just because there's actually like a strange parallel between the two shows. But there's that scene where you find out that the character who plays the conscientious objector, I can't remember his name, but he's in everything. He's in Zodiac. He's like such a great actor. Anyway,
oh yes, yeah.
You find out that he's a conscientious objector, and he says, "Yeah, to World War II, you didn't want to fight the Nazis. Even I want to punch you."
Yeah,
which I thought was such a funny line, and made that character so interesting. When you're like, "Oh my God, this guy was a conscientious objector to World War II." Wow.
Yeah.
And I just think it makes the context of history of like how close 1968 was to World War II very interesting.
Yeah,
but
that's
anyway,
true.
We'll talk about the Trial of the Chicago 7 in a minute. So I think my favorite scene in this episode is that helicopter scene.
Oh my God, the helicopter scene.
When he communicates with the woman and they go to make that switch. That was like really wonderfully done, really exciting. I love when the Falcon gets knocked into the water. He comes back out and he says,
yes,
"You just earned this ass whooping."
Yeah, I love that too.
Like Anthony Mackie can say a line like that so well, and he just needs to be able to say that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah,
like that's the kind of character moment that I need from his Captain America. So funny and such a great scene. I love the idea of like, not exactly a citizen, right? She obviously had some kind of military training,
yeah,
but like deputizing regular people in. Like that's such a Captain America thing to do.
Well, and I loved that he communicates with her like, you know, a little birdie told me you know how to fly a plane, and then he's like, "You're going to count down." And he literally just flies in and rips the guy out of the helicopter. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And well, and like we've established in the first episode, he does that to somebody. And I just love that it's like, yeah, I've done this before. I know how I'm going to do it.
Yeah. It's really cool. It's cool. It's cool structurally, right? To have that at the beginning and the end. But I just loved the Captain American-ness of that scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the speech?
Yeah. So I just watched the Trial of Chicago 7, and I liked it. It was, I think, criticized by people in part for the way that Abby Hoffman is characterized. Abby Hoffman was a 60s radical. He founded the Yippies, and, you know, he was a pretty hardcore dude. So in the movie, he says things like, "I believe that the institutions of our government are good, but populated by terrible people." And that's one line in particular I know people objected to. They were like, Abby Hoffman would not have conceded that,
right?
You know? I think that Abby Hoffman, as understanding his own context and history, would probably be okay with himself being used in sort of a fictional way. I think that the Trial of the Chicago 7 is mostly about the Trump era and about the petty grievances of powerful white men and how they can spiral out of control. You know, the very first scene in the movie is that scene with John Mitchell, the Attorney General, and he's obsessing over the way that his predecessor resigned, in a way that sounds exactly like Trump. Like, that actor's performance is perfect.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the way that Trump would talk about the size of the crowds at his inauguration and would just fixate on it.
Yeah.
And it's just perfect. And it really, I think, sets the tone a lot better than, there's these really weird montages in Trial of Chicago 7, like that, the montage that sort of sets you up for what happened in 1968, in case you, I mean, that's the thing. If you don't know what happened in 1968, you will not follow that movie.
No, I actually think that if you didn't know that the protest was outside of the Democratic National Convention, I don't know that you would know that from watching this movie.
Well, yeah, and it's hard because people forget, because obviously Nixon won, and the previous president before that was Lyndon Johnson, and because of the way that Lyndon Johnson escalated the Vietnam War, people don't really think of Lyndon Johnson as like a liberal, even though so many of his social policies really were. It's kind of one of the strangest contradictions of the 60s to try and go back and unpack.
Yeah.
That Lyndon Johnson could have been doing both things at the same time.
I actually think that he's got a lot more of a... So one of the things in my studies that I've been very much surprised by is the development post-Reconstruction of a like when does the Democrat Party actually switch to being liberal? Because for so long, Southern Democrats are the Klan, and it's forever, like it's for so fucking long. These people are like the actual Klan, and like Lyndon Johnson is a Southern Democrat, so it was not that long before Lyndon Johnson that these people were not liberal. And
well, yeah, and you know, Lyndon Johnson has like a pretty good track record in terms of like on paper on like race stuff.
Yes.
You know? But at the same time, like, so many black men died in Vietnam. You know what I mean? Like, the casualties in Vietnam were disproportionately black. That's, now, disproportionately is a funny word, because it's probably true that more white men died in Vietnam than black men, but disproportionate as to population.
Right.
So that's something, okay, rabbit hole real quick. This is something I found so interesting that I heard on the podcast Election Profit Makers, which is that, okay, we talk about giving prisoners back the right to vote. And that is something that has historically been supported by Democrats and opposed by Republicans. And the belief is that Republicans don't want prisoners to get the right to vote because they'll disproportionately vote Democrat. Because prisoners are disproportionately black.
Right.
Disproportionately. There are still more middle-aged white men in prison than any other group. And middle-aged white men disproportionately vote Republican.
Right.
So nobody really knows what happens if you give felons the right to vote. In fact, that might be better for Republicans.
Right.
Because, you know, and people get confused about what disproportionately means. We think that that means that there are more black prisoners than white prisoners. It's not that.
Right.
It's that as a percentage of their population, black men are overrepresented in the prison population. All other things being equal, which of course they're not, but all other things being equal, the prison population should echo the regular population.
Right.
And the fact that it doesn't is evidence of structural inequality.
Right.
But misunderstanding the idea of disproportionate, as I have done, you know, like I hear disproportionate and that's what I think too.
Yes.
It is one reason that people think about this the wrong way. Anyway, Chicago 7 is a movie that takes the history of the 1960s and plays with them kind of loosely to talk more about modern times. So you end up in a situation where someone like Abby Hoffman gives a speech justifying sort of the existence of and the actions of and the power of the state in some way. Same thing happens in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. However, I think that the difference is that the Trial of Chicago 7 is well-intentioned. It is trying to make a different point than Abby Hoffman was trying to make, and so it sort of massages Abby Hoffman into a place that he really wasn't historically in order to make that point. Falcon's speech at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier doesn't feel like it's trying to say anything except justify and wrap up and tie together all the different themes. Like,
I don't agree with that.
Well, I felt like I understood why Falcon wanted to be Captain America in his scene with Isaiah Bradley.
Yes.
But then when he shows up and makes the speech and tries to tie his racial identity in with what Carly was doing,
right,
in with
yes, I agree
Thanos
with that.
and the snap, in with all this stuff, I was like, wait a minute, I no longer understand why you want to be Captain America.
Well, I think let's set the race aspect aside for a second and say that, by the way, also, like, short little reference, for my birthday this year, Zach bought me a book called Playing with Fire about the 1968 election, and it is so good. It's amazing. So if you want to learn more about that, you should pick up that book. It's crazy good.
I would also recommend the documentary Best of Enemies, as I frequently
Oh, yeah,
do.
that was great.
Morgan Neville's documentary, which, by the way, that guy, Morgan Neville, who I very frequently get confused with Morgan Spurlock, different documentary filmmaker, and Morgan, I can't remember his name, but he's married to Jillian Brown, friend of ours, older sister, Jillian, and he is like a producer. He works with David Chang, and he used to work with Anthony Bourdain. So Morgan Neville, first Morgan that we're talking about, involved in documentary filmmaking. 3 different Morgans involved in documentary filmmaking.
Okay, and where do I fit in?
You're the co-host of this show, in which we're discussing these other 3 Morgans. Morgan Neville has a new documentary coming out about Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, great.
Yeah, which looks interesting, but was confusing to me because I thought, when I first saw that a guy named Morgan was making a documentary about Anthony Bourdain, I thought, I think this is the guy that I kind of know. Like, I don't know this guy, but I know his wife and his brother-in-law. So I thought, and he used to work for Anthony Bourdain, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's like, nope, different Morgan.
Huh.
And anyway, it's the Morgan who directed Best of Enemies, which is a great documentary that really lays out, in a very particular way, the cultural context of 1968 and the way that it impacts our lives today.
Okay, so the Captain America speech. All right, so I thought that this is where you were going with your point here.
Okay.
I thought that you were saying that speech was completely separate from the storyline and more about our lives today than it is that thing. Because it felt very much like a speech about how the government doesn't understand how to take care of its people. And that is what we are going through. And, like, the disconnect between what the government sees as taking care of people versus the people who are actually out there suffering and not getting any help.
I just think, maybe you're right. That's sort of what it's supposed to be. But we did establish last time the way in which Marvel has kind of swapped out the blip for the pandemic.
Yep.
Thematically, and how that really works. So if that's the case, then the speech should work within the context of the story.
Yeah.
But, and there are parts of it that do. But, there's one part where he's like, you ever think about how people feel powerless and how powerless you were when a person snapped their finger and made people disappear? That's the power that you have and that a teen girl has. And I was like, it made me think of that scene in The Simpsons when Homer is just like ranting at Marge and he's losing the thread. And he's like, because when you stick your hand in a pile of goo that used to be your best friend's face, forget it, Marge. It's Chinatown. And I was like he's just like free associated.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just felt very lost in that speech. And I get the idea, but then this is what really should have happened. What would have redeemed that speech is if those politicians sort of stood there and got their talking to and then turned around and just voted anyway, like to do the repatriation, because that would have been so much closer to real life. So many politicians take their moments of public shame public shaming and just go on and just do the same thing. You know what I mean?
Well, we don't.
Andrew Cuomo is still the governor of New York.
I know.
Matt Gaetz is still a congressman from Florida. They just stand there and take the condemnation and then go right back and vote exactly as they were going to.
I think
they're
that,
all Mitch McConnell.
I know. I think that they may. I don't think that they leave it like the government got their talking to and is now going to rethink things. I think that they
No, they do say that.
They do?
They do say that they're going to they say they're reconsidering. They're tabling the vote and they're reconsidering their plan.
All right. Well, maybe
That's why Isaiah Bradley kind of comes around.
Well, maybe that's all just a game, though, to appease the new Captain America. We need him on our side. We can't have.
Yeah, but I still think I think you're still doing one too many layers.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that. Yeah, I don't see Captain. I really liked that they gave him like a Captain America speech at the end. I think that it is all about
needed like
execution.
2 more passes.
Yeah. It did. Well,
it needed a couple more people to read that over and give it a little revision.
And it's, again, so long. Like, that scene goes on way too long. But, again, I liked that it was like, yeah, you know what? He's Captain America, and he's going to fucking act like it, too. He's going to tell you when you're wrong and stand for something. You know, that's good stuff.
Yeah, in a way that maybe we never really get to see Steve Rogers do. You know what I mean? Like even in like The Winter Soldier, it's Natasha who sort of becomes the Edward Snowden whistleblower character at the end. We don't get to see like Captain America testifying before Congress is speaking truth to power.
No, well, and I almost feel like this is like they did it because they were like, we never got to do this.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a role that Anthony Mackie does well, and I think he delivers that speech well. I think the speech itself is incoherent, and the fact that he delivers it so well only helps make it seem more incoherent. You know what I mean? Like he makes the text very legible, and that's normally a good thing. It's normally a good thing to be an actor who can do that. That's to take it back to Trial of the Chicago 7 for a second. That's one thing I really like about a lot of the actors in that movie, like Sacha Baron Cohen. I think he does a great job of just, like a lot of people who are unlikely Aaron Sorkin, casting people like Seth Rogen. You know, like they do a great job with it.
Can I tell you that I have so much trouble looking at Sacha Baron Cohen after watching Les Mis? I'm like so disgusted by him in that movie that like now when I see him, all I think about is him in that movie, and I'm like disgusted.
That's funny. I think that he, I would say, I don't know how you feel about it. I think I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Trial of Chicago 7, but I think my weakest link actor in that is Frank Langella, who plays the judge.
Yeah.
Because it just seems to, he doesn't ever seem to pick a spot to land in terms of, it's like, is it senility? Is it like, you know, is it rage? What is it that's motivating this guy to be so horrible as a judge?
Yeah.
And it's like all over the map. And at the end, the scene at the end with the names, which totally worked on me, absolutely worked on me.
Yeah.
The only part that doesn't work for me is the way that he is hitting his gavel, which is like the most exaggerated slow-mo gavel banging. And I'm like, did Frank Langella know they were shooting this at regular speed?
Yeah.
Because he just looks so weird.
The actual trial itself is I wonder how historically accurate they are, because when watching it, I was like, this is fucking ridiculous, and it's got to be that it's historically accurate. And that's why it's so ridiculous, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, in terms of the historical accuracy, I know that their lawyer and a lot of them were charged with contempt of court a bunch of times. So by the end of the trial, William Kunstler had received 24 counts of contempt of court, none of which were ever actually pursued.
Yeah.
And but anyway, and Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin did actually wear judge's robes to the trial one day. That stuff's all taken from history.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, honestly, it's I really enjoyed it. This podcast has become more about the trial of the Chicago 7 than it has.
This episode's called The Podcast of the Chicago 7.
Yeah.
I think that Aaron Sorkin as a director, I think that he is characterized by being like a very chaotic director. I think that he's very good at staging his scenes of dialogue. And when he has to do other stuff, he goes a little nuts. So, like, there are these montage sequences toward the beginning and toward the end of the trial of the Chicago 7 that, like, the music in particular is so off, like, tonally. And it just kind of sounds to me like, it sounds like generic royalty-free 60s psychedelic rock. And it just, for all I know, it is like it's some well-known, it's like The Who or something. I don't know. But it just doesn't sound like anything to me except for, like, generic music. And it's, like, really frenetic, and it's, like, showing Bobby Kennedy being assassinated and stuff to this kind of, like, upbeat music.
I watched it right when it came out, so it's been too long for me to remember, but I remember really liking the chaos of it all. But
well, like, I would say, like, have you seen Molly's Game?
Yeah.
Like, the beginning of Molly's Game is, like, the most insane montage with photos and this thing that's happening on the ski slopes and all this. She's talking so fast and, like, and it works. It really works.
Molly's Game is
and
awesome.
Yeah, as soon as you get to, like, the end of that opening montage of Molly's Game, I was like, I am fucking in.
Yeah.
And I was for the rest of that very long movie. And I felt like with Chicago 7, that frenetic intro didn't lock me in, but that first scene with John Mitchell really did. So yeah, but I just think, I don't know, I guess to sort of, in case I didn't articulate my point well enough before, the difference between the trial of the Chicago 7 and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which both somewhat cornily and somewhat awkwardly shoehorn their characters in to sort of speaking on behalf of reconciling radicalism with the state, right? Which is not something that either one needed to do. At the very least, Chicago 7 has a purpose beyond itself, beyond justifying its own story, and that's why it does it. Like, I can point to why they make Abby Hoffman say things Abby Hoffman wouldn't have said. I can't really point to why they make Falcon sort of wrap up everything and come down on the side of law and order and the USA, other than the fact that they kind of wanted to wrap up the story. I don't think you had to. Like, I don't think that Captain America needs to pick a side in terms of, like what it felt like with Isaiah Bradley in that scene in the last episode was that he didn't have to. Was that he could take the pain of the black experience and the anger of the black experience and make that the reason that he wanted to fight for America.
Right.
As has been the case with so many people of color who have enlisted and who have felt patriotic because they believe in the ideals of the country, the promise, not what they get, right? That's enough. But this speech felt so much more like, like we need to put each and every one of these ideas to bed, and it just didn't work. It was a real bummer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent. There is this draw to, like, we have to wrap all this shit up, and that's how they chose to do it. Do you think they're going to do another season?
Well, now it sounds like they're going to do Captain America 4, so it sounds like
so
the story.
So you think it's just going to be that?
I mean, that sounds like that's at least what's next. So
I would love a season 2 of just Bucky Barnes and Captain America running around, palling around, because now we've got the other stuff out of the way. Like,
if there was definitely going to be a second season, then you could have left a few more plot lines dangling.
Right.
People don't, like, I hear people criticize Marvel about this all the time. They're like, Marvel never, like, ends a story. It's always just, something always just leads to the next one. And I'm like, well, that's also true of, like, most TV show seasons, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's true of a lot of entertainment.
Yeah.
And so it just seems weird that criticism gets only ever leveled at Marvel. You know, the reasons that we choose to criticize, I mean, that's like a very common theme for me in these podcasts we do, right? Is me like looking at the way that people criticize things and wondering why do we get mad about this now and we don't get mad about it other places? And I guess, you know, the answer is like every time you sit down to talk about a TV show or a movie, you're starting with a white blank page, and sometimes you land on ideas that you didn't land on when you were talking about something else that you probably could have believed about that too. Like,
right.
You talk yourself into believing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and especially with these things that people love so much. People love Marvel things. So, like, the criticism comes from a different place because there's a lot less that people would criticize in general.
Right. And I guess the main thing that people always sort of level at Marvel, which I've heard a lot less of this time around, is like people always just get mad when it doesn't line up with their expectations. Doesn't matter what their expectations are, you know?
Yes, I think that these shows have done a good job breaking that up.
Yeah, well, I think that because the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just by the time you're 3 episodes in, you're like, well, I don't really know what to expect because I don't know what this show is about. So there was really it didn't feel like it was pointing anywhere. So nobody could really, it did help break people of that habit, I guess.
What was your reaction to Baron Zemo's little tie-off at the end where he has the Flag Smashers killed?
I mean, I like that he did it, but my reaction was, why is he back on the raft? Like, didn't he get taken into custody by Wakanda? Wasn't Wakanda going to put him on trial for killing King T'Chaka?
Well, they don't
what
have
kind of
to.
jurisdiction does Wakanda have over the raft?
See, I wonder about that because that could actually come into play. Is that who knows whose jurisdiction the raft came over after the events of Civil War and things like that. The raft could very well now be under the jurisdiction of Wakanda, or it could be like Avengers. The Avengers could be running the raft because like the governments, especially after the snap, had no, who's to say. I really also liked the addition of someone says it's sort of a gray area because the government doesn't own that shield. It's like there's a certain...
I kind of wish there was a little more explanation to that.
I can explain it to you. It is not their property. It never has been. It was given
in the sense that it was... Okay, go ahead. Go on.
It was owned by Howard Stark. It was given to Captain America by Howard Stark. If anyone owns it, it is the trust of Tony Stark. You're telling me that Tony Stark didn't line up X, Y, and Z for after his death where the Avengers are funded. I mean, clearly they aren't giving out paychecks to them, but like, the stuff itself is owned by private citizens. It's not owned by the government.
Interesting.
That's why the Sokovian Accords is that what they called them?
Yeah.
That's why it was such a big deal, because it was like the government is now involving itself with the Avengers, trying to intertwine their involvement. And that is why, it's sort of a gray area because the government doesn't own that shield. If anything, the Avengers own that shield and the legal backing of whatever Tony Stark left in place. And Tony Stark even says that shield doesn't belong to you, to Steve Rogers, Yeah. And then they have that nice little moment in Endgame where he's like, it's yours.
I guess to sort of answer your question though, I liked that moment. I liked that to a certain extent Zemo accomplishes his mission, I think that for better or worse, right, the two characters that have the sort of most coherent storylines in this are Zemo, that bizarre moment with his mask set aside.
Yeah.
And John Walker. And it's in part because of the way that this story, this story is trying to show that things are not black and white, right? So Carly's a little bit right, and Sam can agree with Carly a little bit and whatever. But in the end, everything still has to settle back into primary colors. So it leaves the amoral characters as the only ones who feel consistent. And to a lesser extent, Bucky, right? Because Bucky was bad and is now good, but is seeking something different than like the government's not involved.
How about this for a tagline? Things are not black and white, but Captain America is.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So, what's your overall feeling about this series?
You know, it's hard because it's like expectations, right? I actually really like it. I think it'd be a fun thing to look at, like watch Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and then watch this show.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that it's a fun. I think it's fun. You know, again, there's lots of things that I took issue with, but not issue in like I don't like this, but more it's like these are just strange choices to make. And
sure.
and I think that it definitely, I think you're right that it was definitely recut to change the story
Yes,
a lot.
it was chopped up, and there are a lot of seams showing. Which is something that
it's like crazy that like all of a sudden Bertruck gives them these crazy weapons at the end, and you know, and then we see Sharon Carter blow a guy up with like a mercury bomb. And all this stuff, like the tech at the end seemed very strange to me. Like there should have been some groundwork for that ahead of time.
Yeah. And also, like, again, right, like Sam's read on Sharon makes no sense. Because that's like an incredibly sadistic way to kill someone.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
and he doesn't even blink.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, mercury bomb. He should have been like, what?
What do you mean a mercury bomb?
Yeah, and what kind of containment do we have to do now?
Yeah.
Around that guy's car? What's going to happen to the person who opens the door?
Yeah.
I think this is probably one of my least favorite Marvel properties ever.
Wow.
Like it's down there near like Thor: The Dark World, you know? And because there were moments that I enjoyed. There were lots of moments that I found to be like very pleasurable. But I found the overall series to just be, it didn't feel like anything, you know, I didn't feel like I was being told a story. I didn't feel ever like swept up in the narrative of it as I often am. I often just marvel, pun intended, at the story and the structure and the plotting of these things that Marvel does in the same way that you do with everything, like with the Pixar stuff, you know, like it's like, that this is what they do. What they do is they tell a satisfying overall story, and they tell it in a way that, you know, accesses some universal truth or feeling along the way. And it's just not here at all. In like in the way that WandaVision is about, you know, WandaVision is about grief, and you can track the stages of grief along with the episodes and everything, and that's what I want from, like, that's what you get when you merge Marvel with Disney and Pixar and all that shit, right? You get those minds and that approach to storytelling. I mean, it works. The reason that Disney is the powerhouse that it is because that storytelling approach works. And it just didn't have it. It could have maybe done something with race or the experience of being a member of a marginalized population or something. It could have done it.
I think it does that. If you're telling me that you don't think that it's going to be huge for black people that Captain America is black, then, I mean, come on, man. Like, you know, like there's just by it happening, just by the event itself, you've already accomplished that.
Well, then I think it should have just happened. I don't think there should have been a bunch of hemming and hawing about what it means racially if there's no answer. Like, I think about Watchmen and the 4th episode, the one that delves into the history of hooded justice, it was written by Cord Jefferson. It's like one of the greatest pieces of superhero storytelling ever made. That episode is like a delirious thrill.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's an incredible thing to see. And the way that it talks, the way that it illustrates, the way that superheroism and vigilantism is the recourse of a people for whom law enforcement was never going to work. You know? Mm-hmm. It was never going to work for them. And no matter how hard they tried, because hooded justice is a guy who tried so hard to make the system of justice in America work the way it was supposed to work, and he couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And it's a last resort, right? And it's painful because it's a last resort. And it's just such a strong and clear and cohesive argument, and nothing about what happens in Watchmen takes away from that. The final moments of Watchmen, as Regina King, sort of like steps into her power potentially, does not take away from the sadness and the pain of why these characters had to take the steps that they took.
Right.
Whereas in Captain America and the Winter Soldier, it's like, what does it mean to be a black man wearing the stars and stripes? What's the answer to that question that the show poses? Like, what is the answer the show gives you?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know that it's about actually having an answer specifically. It's more like we're going to do this, and there's got to be a little bit of conversation about how we're going to do this. Yeah,
but it feels perfunctory.
I mean, I agree with you. I'm just saying.
It feels like we have to talk about race a little bit. So let's just talk. Let's dip our toes in the water.
Yeah.
And then let's shake our toes off and then move on and say, Ben, now we've done that. And I guess I wanted a deeper conversation, and I wanted to learn something, from these people who presumably have something to teach me. I don't know what happened. I don't know if Disney got gun shy, and I don't know if maybe Malcolm Spellman's original story was more incisive. Now that Malcolm Spellman's writing Captain America 4, maybe that will be.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is just the groundwork.
Sort of racial amuse-bouche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
For what's coming.
Well, I think
maybe that's the case.
They've seen the power of it with Black Panther, and they know that they can, but maybe this series was more about laying the groundwork for that than anything else, and that we will have more of that type of conversation. Or I don't know. I mean, quite honestly, I think that we're missing a main, we are not black. So I also can't speak to that aspect of how it feels for that type of, because maybe it's a lot of like, it's like this is going to mean a lot to a lot of people, and the conversation we don't need to go that deep into because we know what it means, and
right.
And
yeah.
and it's
maybe that is true.
And it's like we're not responsible to do the work for you, that kind of thing. Like we're only dipping our toes in because we don't want this entire series to be about this one thing. And now I agree that the what the series is about is a hard question, but we just want it to be one detail of this. We don't want it to be the entire story. In the same way that Black Panther almost has the conversation without even doing it. It's almost like it's visualized. I don't know I don't know the answer is my response, but and I think that there's going to be a lot more of that, because the fact that Captain America is black now is going to start a conversation for sure. And maybe they're like, we can't lean too hard into it the first round, because otherwise all these right-wing pieces of shit that watch our stuff are going to be like, oh, yeah, it's fucking liberal now.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. But this is what the lesson that they had to have learned by now is that people are going to say that no matter what. People are going to say Marvel's too woke now because the current thing that those people say is that everything is too woke now.
Yeah, I know.
That's just what they say.
I know.
Like,
but they also, but let's not forget that they are a business that is in this for money. They are not in it to tell stories. They are in it for money.
But the business decision is not how do you avoid being accused of being woke, because if you're doing anything, you're going to be accused of being woke.
Yeah.
So that's not what you plan for. What you plan for is being accused of being woke. And you find a way to make money anyway. Mm-hmm. You find a way to either just not take those people's money or get them to give you their money anyway while they complain.
See, I think it's that. You know? I think that that's their move. But
don't appease them. There's no appeasing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
Like, don't appease them. Get into it. You know, and I just think I think that there's too much surface level stuff in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and not enough diving in. And even if we do dive in later, it won't change the fact that the show.
You're right about that. You are absolutely right about that. We are too surface level throughout the entire series.
Yes. That said, I'm really excited to watch Loki. Owen Wilson looks great in Loki. I'm excited for it.
Love that. He's going to be D.B. Cooper. I love that. Okay. I guess that's it.
Wait, is he going to be D.B. Cooper? Really?
Yeah, did you see the clip of him on the plane in the trailer?
No.
Loki's on the he's dressed like D.B. Cooper. DB Cooper or BD Cooper? I can't remember.
It's DB.
DB Cooper. So yeah, he's dressed like him, like in the in the mug shot. I mean, not mug shot, but in the sketch. That's what he's wearing.
Funny.
Yeah, I think that.
God, I love DB Cooper jokes.
Me too. And I think that I think that what they're gonna do is that Loki is like involved in like all sorts of historical mysteries.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I think that that's like gonna be like some of the bit of that show.
All right, so thank you for talking to me today, Morgan. I'm gonna try to get this out in the next couple of days. It's a little longer, so it might take me a little longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, send me the audio when you get a chance.
I love you.
Love you too.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
And it felt alright to me. Dying on the banks of Embarcadero skies, I sat and watched you breathe.